Dijon Stribling, that name, lock it in right now because what an insider just confirmed from inside the draft process is going to completely change how you are looking at pick number 71 for the Commanders. ESPN and direct sources out of Ashburn are backing it up. Washington had a virtual meeting with this receiver, and bro, they did not send just anybody. They sent a position coach. That is not some casual look. That is Adam Peters being exactly the kind of GM this team needed. Strategic, quiet, lethal. And this player's profile, 6'2", 207 pounds, running a 4.3640 with a drop rate of 1.8%. Is exactly the kind of weapon Jaden Daniels needs to make that full jump in year 3 in the league. And that, fam, is just the first move on the board because while Peters is building out the receiver room through the draft, Dan Quinn just opened up an internal war on the offensive line that nobody in the DMV saw coming. And to close it out, there is a health update that is technically small, but once you hear it, bro, it completely flips your mood. Exactly the kind of thing this fan base needed to hear. If you are part of the Commanders revolution, if you believe in this new era in Washington, hit like on this video right now and subscribe to the channel. This is Burgundy and Gold. This is the moment. Raise hail. Have strong interest in Dijon Stribling, underrated war who could solve Washington's biggest problem. Okay, let's talk about what has had every Commanders fan losing it this offseason. Wide receiver WR1, that spot that has been like a black hole in this offense ever since Terry McLaurin left the team. And bro, all through free agency, we were glued to Twitter, F5, 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 waiting for Adam Peters to close something. Brandon Ayuk, rumors. Cortland Sutton, nothing. Other names, nothing. The team needs a receiver and everybody knows it. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's what Adam Peters is quietly cooking while everybody is staring at the round 1 prize. Because the Commanders are not just looking at first-round receivers for pick number 7, they are also doing their homework on day 2 and day 3 of the draft. And one of those names that started popping up on the radar is Dijon Stribling out of Michigan State. And listen, bro, this dude is not getting even half the love deserved on the big boards. Stribling told Justin Melo from NFL Draft at Sports Illustrated straight up that there was a virtual meeting with the Commanders and that one of Washington's receivers coaches was in that meeting. That is not noise. That is not speculation. That is a team being strategic and very specific about how those picks are going to be used. When a position coach jumps into a virtual with a prospect before the draft, that screams real interest. It is not some casual look. It is serious work. And all right, let's talk about the player. Dijon Stribling, 6'2" tall, 207 pounds. Just that alone has me dialed in because the Commanders need size in that receiver room. They need a receiver who can win at the line, who can make catches in traffic, who Jaden Daniels can find on third downs and in the red zone. But here comes the part that is going to surprise you if you have not looked at the numbers. This dude ran a 4.3 size 40, BRO 4.364. For a receiver who is 6'2" and more than 200 pounds, that is a cheat code. That is the type of athlete who turns into a matchup nightmare in the NFL. Because safeties cannot match the size and corners cannot match the speed. That is exactly what you want when you are building an offense around a young, explosive quarterback like Jaden Daniels. And then you look at the hands. The drop rate in 2025 was 1.8%. 1.8%. Bro, that is basically statistical perfection. When a receiver has a drop rate that low, it tells you the game does not speed up on that player, that the hands are money under pressure, and that when Jaden finds that target in the most important moment of the game, that ball is going to stick. There is huge value there that the consensus boards are not really capturing. Now, what is really interesting in Washington's strategic angle here is this. There is no second-round pick and no fourth-round pick in this draft. After number 7, the picks are basically a third at 71 and then 5th, 6th, and 7th. That tightens the margin. But if Stribling is being projected as a fourth-rounder in the general consensus and the Commanders have a higher internal grade, like a third-round grade, then taking this receiver at 71 makes you feel like you are stealing. That is exactly the kind of move Adam Peters likes to pull. And look, let's talk about the comparison that the writer of that piece makes and that has me convinced. The writer says there is a personal preference for Stribling over Ted Hurst, Jacoby Lane, and Bryce Lance, 3 receivers who are projected significantly higher on the consensus boards. And bro, not only do I get that argument, I am backing it. The big board consensus does not always reflect how a player fits a specific system. And in this Commanders offense, with Jayden's mobility, with the need for a receiver who can create yards after the catch, who can separate vertically, but also work underneath, Stribling has a profile that fits in a very specific way. The biggest dilemma is still pick number 7. Do the Commanders go receiver there, or do they take best player available? Whether that is Jeremiah Love in the backfield or a high-impact defensive player and wait until day 2 to attack the receiver position, if Stribling is as good as the meetings and the numbers hint, you can build a strong case that grabbing somebody like Carnell Tate or Makai Lemon in the first round plus Stribling in the third gives you 2 receivers with legit starter upside in a single draft. That changes this team in a brutal way. And about Brandon Ayuk, listen, that topic is still floating out there. San Francisco still has not officially moved on. But once that happens, the Commanders are going to be in that conversation. That is pretty much a given at this point. But a roster cannot be built banking on whatever San Francisco decides to do. Peters is playing it smart, covering every angle. Free agency, draft day 1, draft day 2. Every move has its logic. And Stribling could end up being that day 2 move that 3 years from now everybody points at as the one that quietly defined this offense. Fam, if this receiver lands in Washington and has a rookie year with Ocho, Nueve D's touchdowns working next to the receiver Peters brings in the first round or in free agency, bro, that is going to be the steal of the 2026 draft, and we will be able to say we saw it coming from right here, from this video. Keep that name in your head, Dejon Stribling. Okay, bro, we'll lock that name in. Because now it is time to talk about something that directly affects what is happening in the middle of that offensive line. And listen, this is way more important than it looks at first glance. Dan Quinn leaves the door open for Brandon Coleman to jump into the competition at center. All right, let's talk offensive line, specifically center. And before anybody says, bro, that is boring, hold up, because this story has way more layers than it looks like, and it has direct implications for how well Jayden Daniels gets protected. And if there was one thing that became crystal clear last year when Biadasz was out, it is that center matters more than people think. First, the basics. Tyler Biadasz, the Commanders' starting center, was released this offseason and signed a new 3-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. That is an unexpected gut punch. Nobody really saw that spot suddenly turning into an urgent need. And yet here we are, 1 month out from the draft, with a massive question mark sitting right in the middle of the line. The Commanders restructured Nick Allegretti's deal, who was already on the roster, turning what was 1 year left into a new 2-year contract. Allegretti has experience in the system, already knows the calls, already showed that the job at center can be handled when Biadasz went down at the end of the 2025 season, and Allegretti handled it solidly. So it is not like the team is in full-blown panic mode with nothing under the hood, but here is the part that really has my attention. Because Dan Quinn spoke with Wusa Nueve at the NFL Annual League meeting and was very clear about how this is going to be handled. The keyword Quinn used was competition. The message was that Nick Allegretti and Julian Good-Jones are going to battle for the starting center spot. That phrase, going to battle, is not casual. Quinn believes in competition, always has. That is a core principle in how roster culture gets built. And then Quinn added something that was especially interesting. The door is open for Brandon Coleman, a 3rd-year lineman who was originally drafted to be the left tackle of the future, to eventually jump into that competition as well. Specifically during OTAs and training camp, the plan is to start Coleman at left guard, but there is a real chance that a transition to center during the offseason program gets explored. Bro, think about that for a second. Brandon Coleman was drafted out of TCU with the idea of being this team's future left tackle. And that blueprint got blown up the second the Commanders pulled off one of the biggest moves in recent franchise history by trading for Pro Bowl left tackle Laramie Tunsil in 2025. Overnight, Coleman was no longer the future at tackle, and there had to be a move back inside to guard, where there was also experience from college. But that transition to guard was not perfect. Chris Paul beat Coleman out in the competition for the left guard spot at the start of last season. And now, with Chris Paul coming back on a new 1-year deal, that battle is running it back. Coleman and Paul are going to fight again for that guard spot. On top of that, now Quinn is saying Coleman could potentially compete at center too. That is a lineman who could literally line up at 3 different spots on the interior. That kind of versatility is insanely valuable from a roster building standpoint. Now, is Coleman the definitive answer at center? Honestly, there is no way to know yet. That uncertainty is exactly what makes this competition both fascinating and critical at the same time. What is clear is that Quinn has a method, talks competition, actually lives it, and then the best player takes the field, and there is trust in that process even when it makes you a little nervous. The full picture Quinn laid out for the line is also encouraging. There is Tunsil and Josh Connerly Jr. at tackle, Sam Cosmi healthy heading into the offseason, Andrew Wiley back in the building, a move Quinn clearly cared about, Chris Paul at guard, and now this center battle with Allegretti, Good Jones, and potentially Coleman. That is a line with more depth and more competition than what this team had 12 months ago. Quinn also left the door open to adding another center, either through free agency in the coming weeks or in the late April draft. That is smart. Do not close any doors. Keep hunting the best possible player for that spot, because at the end of the day, the center is the one making protection calls, communicating with the quarterback at the line, anchoring the front against some of the nastiest nose tackles in the league. That is not a position where you can afford to do it halfway. And pay attention to something Quinn said that really exposes this team's whole philosophy. It is not about where the competitions start. It is about where they finish. Bro, that is leadership. That is culture. You are not getting told who is going to win the job in March. You are being told that by July, the best player is going to be on the field, and that is exactly what you want from a head coach. Yo, fam, take a breath for a second, because now comes something that literally had me on my feet when I saw it. A piece of news that is technically just a small health update, but for Commanders fans, it carries a massive emotional weight. Let's go! Trey Amos says a broken leg is healed in viral video. The corner who got this fan base hyped and is now coming back hungry. Okay, bro, this is the kind of news that does not come with press conferences or official team statements. It comes from Instagram Live, from a young corner plugged in with the people who in the middle of a private workout decides to pull out a phone and tell the fans directly, I am good, I am back. And when that corner is Trey Amos, that hits different. If Trey Amos or what went down is not fresh in your mind, here is the quick rundown second-round pick out of the University of Ole Miss. Cornerback came to the Commanders with a reputation as a physical player, strong in press coverage, with a frame that fits perfectly into what defensive coordinator Durante Jones wants in that secondary. And in the first 10 weeks as a pro, Trey Amos was one of the best feel-good stories on this defense. There were 8 starts in the 10 games played, only 1 touchdown allowed in coverage in that stretch, 20 those tackles, and C's pass breakups. Bro, that is really solid production for a rookie corner who is still learning the NFL game, and it was all done with a confidence, with a physical presence at the line of scrimmage that made you think this dude was about to be a serious problem for opposing receivers for the next Diaz years. Then came Week 10 against the Seattle Seahawks, and Amos suffered a fibula fracture that sent the corner straight to injured reserve. Season over just like that, and that hurt, not only because of the impact on the field, but because you were watching a young player who was so close to finishing out that first season, and then one of those injuries hit that you are never fully ready for. But fam, here's the good part. Here's the moment fans had been waiting on. Trey Amos hops on Instagram Live literally 5 minutes after finishing a workout and tells everybody, leg going good, man, for real, for real. And that, bro, in the context of everything Commanders fans went through with injuries this past year, that is music. That is exactly the kind of update you needed. Think about the timing. The Commanders are heading into the offseason program. Rosters are starting to take shape. The pecking order in the secondary is being set, and Trey Amos pops up saying that the leg is good, that training is on, that the body is responding. That is not some minor footnote. That is a corner sending a clear signal about being hungry, about that lost year hitting different and fueling a new level of motivation. And corners who come back from injury with that kind of energy very often make that second-year jump. Now, the situation in the Commanders' secondary is interesting. The team has Mike Sainristil, and there is still belief there. Akello Witherspoon and Amik Robertson were added. Veteran corners with experience who are coming in to bring competition and depth. There were several departures at that position this offseason, and on top of all this, there is a very high chance the team brings in another corner in the April draft, potentially in the early rounds. Does that mean Amos is going to be in a fight for the spot? Honestly, yes, and that is a good thing. Not for the corner in the moment because nobody likes having a job pushed, but for the team, it is exactly what you want. You need Trey Amos with both hands on a cornerback spot, feeling that if there is no production, somebody is ready to take that role. That pressure is what turns good corners into great ones. And look, the physical profile Amos brings fits so cleanly into what Durante Jones is building on defense. There is size, there is speed, there is the ability to press receivers at the line, there is ball instinct like those CI's pass breakups in just 10 games show. If training camp is hit at 100%, if that fibula is fully healed and Amos can go full gas from day one of OTAs, this corner has every tool needed to grab a starting spot and never give it back. What gets me most fired up about this story, and this is from a fan perspective, not just as an analyst, is what it represents. Trey Amos is exactly the type of corner the Commanders are investing in. Young, talented, hungry, came into an organization that went and got this corner in round 2 because the front office believed in the upside when others did not necessarily see a star yet. And that corner is now coming back from the toughest physical moment of a career, training solo, sending updates straight from the phone because there is a real connection felt with the Washington crowd. Bro, that is how franchise identity gets built. If Trey Amos puts together a fully healthy 2026 and the numbers from before the injury get stretched out over a full 17-game season, we are potentially talking about one of the best young corners in the NFC East. And in a conference that has Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs still out there. You need that kind of corner. You need Trey Amos at 100%. So, bro, when that Instagram live popped up and leg going, good man, for real, came through the speakers, the only thought was, it is coming. Trey Amos is coming, and the opponents are not ready. Bam! This is what makes being a Commanders fan right now so addictive. This is not a team stuck in rebuild mode. This is not a team just throwing picks and praying. This is a team building with method, with smarts, with vision. Adam Peters is hitting every position of need from multiple angles at the same time. Dan Quinn is building a competition-driven culture that raises the level of everybody on the roster. And young players like Trey Amos are sending clear signals that they are coming back hungry with something to prove. The draft is just weeks away. Training camp battles are going to be vicious. And this team is one strong draft away from becoming a legit threat in the NFC. If Peters lands the right receiver, if the line gets the center situation sorted out, and if Jaden Daniels makes that expected year 3 leap, this 2026 season could be something special, something that is going to be remembered. And the idea is to live it together from right here, from this space. So if you made it all the way to the end, bro, first of all, thank you. For real. Second, drop your thoughts down in the comments. Are the Commanders taking Stribling on draft day 2? Do you trust the competition at center? And do you think Trey Amos can become this team's CB1 once back at 100%? Bam! All of that needs to be in the comments. And if this video hit the spot, you already know what to do. Hit like, subscribe if that has not happened yet, and turn on the bell because the Commanders keep dropping news and the coverage here does not stop. See you in the next video. Hail to the Commanders!